Hi, I'm Tracee Loran, and I am in Brooklyn.
Amazing. And so you were captured on camera being the first woman in line. You expressed what that meant to you. Can you tell me once you got in, what happened after that?
Yeah, I arrived at the location like around 7 o'clock in the morning, and I got there and it was barren except for Secret Service and people just kind of milling about. And I was just kind of like lost, like, what do I do? So I asked a couple of Secret Service guys, and they were like, I guess go down there. And I was like, all right. So I just kind of wandered down there, and it was taped off. It had like the police tape and everything. And I was like, this just seems weird standing here, right? But I looked at the instructions. I even emailed someone from the digital team and I said, this is where I am. Should I just stand here? And they were like, yeah. So I just stood there. And so by the time I settled in line, it was about 7:20. My one person line. It was about 7:20 a.m. And about 10 minutes later, another guy came. And I saw that he had one of those, fold up chairs or whatever. And I said, I don't want him trying to take my number one spot. So I said, are you here for the event? And he was like, yes. And he said, is this where they told you to stand? I was like, yep. Like that. And he was like, okay. But he never came behind me. And so then I asked a lady that I finally saw someone that I thought worked with the campaign. And I said, hey, where's the line? And she was like, well, that's the entrance right there. So I said, do you think it's fine if I stand here? So she said, maybe you should stand over a little bit, over. And so over is where the guy was standing. And I said, okay. So I walked over and kindly got right in front of him. And I said, yeah, she told me to come over here. And so I was like, honey, I'm first. Don't even try it. Don't take my
Amazing.
number one status because I'm rocking it all day. And so no, so he was mad chill and he was like, cool. First of all, he ended up being a seat filler. Let's start there. I didn't know
Oh,
this.
wow.
So can you imagine if he would have been number one and he wasn't really number one? I would have been tight. But he was mad cool, So I stood there and he and I were probably there alone for almost an hour. Like no one
Mm.
showed up. And so, but we both decided that by 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, it was going to be over. Like it's the floodgates were going to open. So we were like, we got here at the right time. So yeah, like maybe about 45 minutes or so later, this couple came. And then after that, I think a niece came, a niece and an aunt came. And so it started to slowly fill up. And then it was just like, yeah, I'm number one. So all day that became the thing. It was so weird, Jade. It was like I was a star. People kept saying, what time did you get here? I was like, 7:20. I took the bus and they were like, what? I was like, yeah. And so all day, people, I was kind of sitting off to the side. So you didn't really know. And I was behind the police tape because I was trying to like get comfortable. I had something to sit on. And so no one saw me or they thought that I was working with the campaign. So they were actually going up to the guy who then eventually became a woman. And they were like, oh, were you number one? And everyone was like, no, Tracee was number one. So it was like, no one would allow me not to be number one. Like it was like they were so protective of me. It was the cutest thing. So shout out to all of my line homies out there. They really held it down for me. They were like, no, the person you need to be talking to is Tracee because she was really number one. And they were serious about it too. And so we just it was just a cool environment. And then I had seen someone from the campaign, and I said to him, I said, hey, how do I get to sit behind the vice president? Because I'd always seen, you watch the rallies and you see the people sitting behind you, like, that's cool. And so he says, well, what were your instructions? And I was like, what do you mean? So I pulled out my instructions and he was like, oh, well, you're in the general. I was in Gen Pop. And I was like, well, I want to sit behind her. And see, he said, are you going to protest her? I said, no. I got up. I got on a bus at 1 o'clock in the morning from Brooklyn. I'm here. I'm a supporter. I do, I've been doing content in support of her. No, not absolutely not. So he asked me 3 times if I was going to protest her. I said, no. And I said, I was here at 7:20. And he goes, okay. And I was like, I was the first person here. He's like, wow, okay, cool. He said, well, I tell you what, go down to this gate, blah, blah, tell them I sent you and yada, 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 that you were number one, and tell them all that. And then you'll get a chance to sit behind the vice president. And I was like, what? And so I didn't want to tell my line buddies that I had gotten the call up to the big leagues. So that I was moving up from the minor leagues. And so I just actually went back with my line buddies, and I just kind of chilled, and I went to the VIP line and I said, do I have to stand here? And they were like, no, you can't get in until 3:00 anyway. I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to go back to Gin Pop and hang out with my homies. So I stood there until I couldn't anymore. It was about 1:45. And finally I said, hey guys, I was like, yeah, I've been called up to the big league. So I'm going to be leaving y'all now. It's been fun, but I got to go.
And so after Kamala Harris delivers her speech, you mentioned that Secret Service had been looking at you a little bit. When did Secret Service reach out to you?
So I like maybe about 15 minutes before her speech ended, I started to see like kind of some moving about. And I was like, what's going on? And I saw people pointing at me. And, Secret Service was where I was standing. I was in the bleachers, right? But I was in the far left. So when she first comes in where the USA sign was, that's where I was sitting. So I can see everyone come out. And right in front of me was an empty space. And there was Secret Service and just her staff. So people were pointing in my direction. And I was like, am I in trouble? Like, what is going on? I kind of got nervous a little bit. It was a little unnerving. And finally, some guy from the staff, not Secret Service, but someone from the staff came up and was like, are you Tracee? I was like, yeah. He was like, were you here first? I was like, yes. And he was like, the vice president would like to meet you. I was like, oh, what? So he's like, yeah, so get all of your stuff and come with me. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. So he said, did you want to watch the rest of the speech out here? By that time I had blacked out. I was like, whatever, just like stick a fork in me, take me wherever you want me to go. I have no idea. And so I watched a little bit of the speech, but honestly, I had literally blacked out. I didn't know what she was saying at that point. So they kind of took me behind the stage, and I was in like in the control room, right, so to speak. And I was back there, and all I thought, Jade, was like, I am my most homeless looking today. I cannot believe I am meeting this woman. And so I started trying to like just look a little better, taking off all these clothes I had. I was ripping clothes off and throwing them on the ground and just trying to like look decent. And so I can hear her speech ending. And I was like, oh my God. So I was at one point kind of by myself. They brought me over and they said, all right, just stand here. And I was like, okay. And so I guess when it was time for her to come out, they went to meet her, of course, like they should, right? And before I knew it, she just floats up to me and she grabbed my hand and she's like, I hear you were here. You were the first person in line. I was like, yes. And I swear, I don't know how to describe this feeling. It's like if you're the only person in the room that this person is speaking to, like she made me feel like I was the only person in the room. That's how engaged and how just sincere and genuine she is. And I was just like, wow. And so I was telling her about my grandma and how, I help take care of her. She's like, let's get grandma on the phone. I was like, what? So I said, well, let's call my mom. That might be a little bit better because it would be quicker, and I knew my mom would love to talk. So that's how it happened. It was just so cool.
Mentioning just about what it was like being first in line and being rewarded with something like that, to be a supporter of the Harris Walls campaign and to have that moment of really meeting the vice president and what could be potentially the next president, the next woman president, the next Black and Indian descent president. What does that mean for you?
I went there because I wanted an experience. I had never attended a rally before, anyone's rally. And when she got in a race, I had made in my mind that I'm going to make it to one of her rallies because I just felt like I had supported her in 2019, and so I just been following her. And just really support it. And just when you support someone like that, you feel protective of them. And just the way that I just feel like she's been maligned. And, I really believe in her agenda. And listen, I'm a beneficiary of the Biden-Harris administration. Like, I was $80,000 in student loan debt. And as of last year, this time, gone, like forgiven. So listen, I've benefited. And so I know the great things. And I know that she wants to do even more. And so when I left my house that day, I did not anticipate meeting her. What I did set out to do was to be the first person in line. I did set out to do that. And I thought at the very least I could have a great experience, maybe have great seats, you know what I mean? Be close enough to maybe get a picture. I didn't even know how any of that stuff worked, but maybe get a picture of, even if it was just her up close, but not with me in it. But to have the opportunity to meet her and to be a true supporter and to see that she was so genuine and so real in her demeanor, it was unbelievable. It was unbelievable because you could see that this woman cares. Like, this is not a facade. She's a politician and she's out there making promises like politicians do. And I can even see it from afar that she cares, just looking at the way that she interacted with other people. But when it became my time, and to have her interact with me in that way, that was so real. And it just like pierced me, like in my soul. It was beautiful. And it just topped the night off. And I remember thinking, Jade, before the speech was over, before anybody came up to me, I said, well, Tracee, like, I wanted to sit behind the vice president. I didn't get to sit behind her, but I said, and I could tell she was winding her speech up. And I was like, if the speech ends right now, if the night ends right now, you had a great experience. And I'm saying this to myself, and I don't regret what happened. And it's almost like a couple of minutes after that, like, I sat in that gratitude of just really being grateful for the experience, no matter how hard it was, like no sleep, riding a bus. I hate the bus. I hate crowds. Let me just tell you that. Like, this is so against anything that I really like, but it just felt worth it, the experience. And it felt like this is something I should do. And I was actually supposed to go to Atlanta before, and the details didn't come to me in time enough for me to go to Atlanta. So I was meant to be in DC. If I'd have gone to Atlanta, I never would have gone to DC. I never would have been the first person in line. None of this stuff would have happened. So I was meant to meet her yesterday, and for what happened and the way it happened and everything. And it just felt, to me, it was, I mean, I already voted for her anyway, but it to me was like, that was the button. That was like, yeah, this is the woman that needs to lead this country. This person right here that looked you dead in your eye and talked to you like nobody else was around and spoke to your mother and said kind things. This is the woman that needs to lead this country right now in a complete healing process. Her rallies, experiencing that rally and how unifying it was, how I was friends with, older white folks. I was friends with younger gay white folks. I was friends with Indian folks, with Black folks, just all of us singing songs and just having a great time. I said, this is the America that I want to live in. And this is the person that's making it happen.
What was your reaction when she took the moment to call your mom? What did your mom say?
First of all, I'm surprised my mother made it through that call. Like, I was praying that she answered the phone. But when I can hear the joy in my mother's voice, like she said, nothing like this has ever happened to me. That's what she said. And she was just so grateful. And she's still talking about it today. She thinks that Kamala Harris is a remarkable woman. And so she just felt the same thing. She said, I wanted to tell her that she is the rainbow at the end of the rain. That's what my mother wanted to tell Kamala Harris, but she just blacked out. But she was just excited, and I can hear it in her voice. And I was glad for her to have that experience. I really was, that she can get that experience too. That I did not experience it alone. You know what I mean? And so that was great.
Amazing. I'm just going to do one last thing. If you could just describe the moment when she walked up to you one more time. I think my email went off. And I want to make sure I have that clean audio of that. So if you could just, when you come backstage, she comes to meet you. Can you just tell me a little bit more about how that interaction went about.
Sure. So I am, at one point I'm standing. At one point I am standing by myself. I heard her speech ending. So her staff and everyone, Secret Service and everyone went to meet her, of course. So I'm just kind of standing there and I'm like, oh my God, in my head, like, I can't believe this is about to happen. And after I heard the speech end, applause, applause, applause. And before I know it, she floats up to me. It's like she floated up to me and she grabbed my hand and she looked me dead in my eye. And she was just like, I hear you with the first person. I was like, yes. And she said, what time did you get here? And I was like, 7:20. She was like, oh my gosh. And it's that feeling. I don't know if you've ever had a feeling where someone's talking to you and you're the only person in the room. That's how I felt. I felt like I was the only person, and even though we were surrounded by, Secret Service and her digital team, cameras were going off, flashes everywhere, but it felt like I was the only person in the room that she was speaking to at that moment. It was so sweet. It was so sweet, and it just confirmed how amazing she is and how much of a genuine human being she is, that she's not faking it. And I felt it. And then the funny thing is, I didn't even see Doug there. And she says, this is my husband, Doug. And I was like, oh my God, Doug! Like a big goofy. I watched that video now and I'm like, how goofy was I?
You watch the video, it's now gone viral. What does it feel like to go viral with the vice president of all people?
Of all people, the video has gone viral and I had no idea it was even out there. I mean, before I even left, the mall, the area, they had posted it. These people are quick. They had posted it and obviously it already had like 30,000 likes. I was like, what is happening? What is actually happening? I can't believe it. Like, usually I post stuff on Twitter, which is, I feel like, the site that I have the least engagement with. I posted, it's like I've thrown something into the garbage can. Well, I posted that picture of me with the vice president. Girl, that thing has torn, has lit Twitter up. Like, I went from 900 followers to, like, I think I checked, I'm almost at 3,000 followers just from this thing. It's insane. It's insane. Like, it's crazy. Can't believe it. Can't
That's
believe it.
amazing. Well, congratulations. Is there anything else that you want to add or, just express as we are going into this election season and about your experience altogether?
Well, yesterday, meeting the vice president of the United States and possibly the president of the United States, it was an amazing experience for me, but it doesn't happen if people don't get out there and vote. I know that I exercised my civic duty last week or Sunday, but people need to vote. And I'm ready. I'm so ready for change. And I'm so ready for just a positive environment. And for me, that's what Kamala Harris brings. So I'm excited that I met her and I'm excited that she lived up to the image that I had of her before meeting her.